Forget all the headlines about new battleships and fighter jets for a minute. The biggest, most fundamental shift in American power, it isn't happening on a battlefield. It's happening on a balance sheet. America just crossed a line no superpower wants to cross. For the first time in modern history, the United States is spending more on debt interest than on its entire military. So this isn't just an economic story, it's a power story. What happens when yesterday's debt starts overpowering tomorrow's security? You're watching Voice on Pages, where global power, capital, and institutions are decoded beneath the headlines. Subscribe now, because this shift is only beginning. Okay, so let's get right to the heart of it. We're calling this the crossover moment. And believe me, future historians are going to look back at this exact point as a fundamental turning point for American power. And here are the cold, hard numbers. For fiscal year 2025, the U.S. Treasury's own data shows that net interest payments on the national debt are set to hit a staggering $970.4 billion. Now look at the other side. The entire budget for national defense is $916.6 billion. That means we're spending over $50 billion more just to pay for old debt than we are to fund the entire military. And let's be clear, this isn't some distant projection. This is the new reality, right now. Now, to really wrap your head around that number, let's break it down. That $970 billion a year works out to roughly $111 million per hour, every single hour. To put that into perspective, a brand new F-35 fighter jet costs about $80 million. So the U.S. is literally burning through more than the price of a top-of-the-line fighter jet every hour of every day just servicing its past borrowing. So the big question is, how on earth did we get here? Well, this didn't just happen overnight. This was a slow-motion crisis, a trap that was carefully, or maybe carelessly, built over decades, with each new challenge just adding another heavy layer to the national credit card. This timeline really lays it all out. It all started layering up back in 2001, when you had major tax cuts at the same time as the enormous costs of new wars kicked in. Then, bam, the 2008 financial crisis hits, and you need a massive stimulus to keep things afloat. Fast forward to 2017, you get more tax cuts, and then, of course, the unprecedented spending to handle the 2020 pandemic. You see, no single event caused this, but layered together, they built a structural debt trap. And here's the kicker. That mountain of debt has to be constantly refinanced. Think about it like this. It's like the U.S. took out a huge credit card at a really nice, low interest rate of, say, 2.3%. But now that debt is coming due, and it has to be rolled over onto a new card, one where the interest rate is up at 4% or even higher. We're talking about $9.2 trillion of U.S. debt that has to be rolled over in 2025 alone. That's how your interest payments just explode. So what does all this mean for national security? Well, it's pretty simple. When the massive, non-negotiable bill for the past comes due, it's the future that has to pay for it. This is how debt becomes a silent but incredibly effective weapon against your own military power. And you can see the results right here in black and white. Analysts have a name for this. It's the emergence of a hollow force. That's a military that looks huge and powerful on paper, but in reality, it's stretched thin. It doesn't have the training, the modern gear, or the resources to be truly effective. Just look at these stats. The Air Force's mission-capable rates, basically how many planes can actually fly, are at their lowest in a decade. The Navy's got a growing backlog of ships waiting for maintenance, and the military's facing a recruiting crisis that's left the active duty force at its smallest size since 1940. And if you want a really stark warning, look no further than this quote from a recent study by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, or CSIS. They concluded that with our current stockpiles, the U.S. would burn through its most important precision munitions in less than a week in a major war. I mean, you can't fight a long war if you can't afford the bullets. If you care about how money quietly shapes global power, subscribe. This is where we decode it. Okay, let's zoom out for a second, because this isn't just some internal accounting problem. A country's balance sheet sends a powerful signal to the rest of the world. And you can bet that both rivals and allies are watching, and they are interpreting these numbers very, very closely. This table really lays out the new great power ledger. You've got the U.S. sitting with a debt-to-GDP ratio around 100%, and its defense spending is being actively choked out by these mandatory interest payments. Meanwhile, you've got China's defense budget, which is just growing and growing, and Russia, with a tiny debt load, is able to put its entire economy on a war footing. It's not hard to see the strategic disadvantage this creates.
There's this common myth that China is America's banker. But as you can see from this chart, that's just not really the case anymore. China's share of U.S. debt has actually dropped a lot, and it's now only about 2 to 3% of the total. Our biggest foreign holder? Japan, a key ally. So the real story here isn't about foreign leverage. The story is that America has become its own worst creditor. And that brings us to the single most important idea in this entire explainer, the new reality of American power. This isn't about collapse. No, it's about something more subtle and honestly a lot more realistic. The word you need to remember is constraint. This doesn't mean defeat. It's not the end of America as a great power. What it means is a slow, steady tightening of financial weight that limits a country's options, its freedom to act on the world stage. Suddenly, every decision has a much higher price tag attached, and some options just aren't on the table anymore. Great powers rarely fall in a single moment. They tighten, slowly, under financial weight. What we're watching isn't collapse, it's constraint. A world where America is still powerful, but no longer financially unlimited. And in geopolitics, limits change behavior more than enemies ever could. This is Voice on Pages. Make sure you subscribe if you want to understand how power really moves, beneath the headlines. And hey, if you enjoyed this explainer and want to support the work we do here, there's a link in the description where you can buy me a coffee. Thanks so much for watching.